Okay, welcome back to Jazz Piano. In this video, I'm going to review how to construct a walking bass line. So, walking bass lines in jazz are very complicated. It's a huge topic, and it takes a long time to master them. But I can give you guys a really good starting discussion to get your foot out the door. So, in general, we're going to create some general rules. With walking bass line, we mean that we're going to hit a bass note on every quarter note. So we're going to hit every beat. Okay? So what notes do we hit? Generally, we hit the root on the downbeat. Okay? And very often, but not always, we'll hit the fifth on beat 3. All right. So what do we do in between? It's pretty simple. We're going to do a combination of either chord arpeggios walking up and down the scale, or chromatic approach notes. So a chromatic approach note is the note a half step above or below the bass note you're trying to hit. And that's particularly useful when you've only got 2 beats for one chord, which we're going to run into in the turnaround at the end of the blues, right? Because the last 2 bars of the blues are a 1 dominant, 6 dominant, 2 minor, 5, 7, 1. So it's a 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Right, and only 2 beats for each of those. Okay, so let's look at how do you get from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. Let's just take a couple of formulas. So just memorize these formulas and just pick them. So formula number 1, how do we get from the 1 to the 4? So in the first measure, we're going to go up the scale, except we're going to skip the 4 and then come down to the 4, right? So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. Okay? So that's formula number 1, right? I would go, sorry. Right? There we go. So I'm just going 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's a walking bass line to the 4. You notice I've got the root on beat 1 and the third, which is a strong note on beat 3, right? Chord tones. So once more. That's formula number 1. Formula number 2 would be I'm going to do the arpeggio of the B flat and then go down to the E flat. Right? So now, once again, starting on the root, just going up the arpeggio, and then chromatic approach to the E flat. Right? Okay? Another variation on that would be to just change the octaves, right? I could just do this. I could go, or, all right? And finally, formula number 3 is just going to go down the scale. So I got to go down B flat, but since it's a B flat dominant, there has to be a flat 7, not a natural 7. So I'm just going to go down. There we go. See how I did that? I'm just going down my B flat Mixolydian scale. Okay, so those are our 3 basic formulas that we're going to use. Going 1 to 4, either up the scale, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, up the arpeggio and then chromatically down to the 4, or we're going to go down the scale with the flat 7. Okay, now we're on the 4. How do we get back to 1? Couple of formulas. If we're going down here, we can go up the arpeggio and do a neighbor tone. So see how I did that? I'm just going up the 4 chord arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, then doing a chromatic neighbor tone, back to the 1 on the downbeat of bar 3. Okay, so I'm going to combine formula 3 for the first chord and this formula for the second chord. There we go. So I just went 1, 4, 1. Okay, another way to get from the 4 to the 1 would be to go down Mixolydian and then chromatically approach the B flat. Okay, so if I'm here, I could do this. I could go. Okay, so let me combine our very first formula and that one. So back to the very beginning. Sorry. See how that works? So I'm going on the first chord 1, 2, 3, 5. On the 4 chord, I'm going 1, flat 7, 6, and then a chromatic approach to the 1. Okay? So now I've got a free bar of 1. So I could go. I added a little 8th note in there. That's called a hiccup in bass line. Or you could just go. Right, arpeggio. If you're going to stay on the 1. So I could go. Something like that. Now, if I'm going to do 2-5 in bar 4, then I got to think about getting from the B flat to the F. So I might go. So see, once again, I'm just going down the scale and then doing a chromatic approach, a half step above to the F. Okay? And now I've only got 2 beats for the F, 2 beats for the B flat 7, 2 beats for the F minor, back up, 2 beats for the F minor, 2 beats for the B flat 7, and then I've got to get to my E flat 7. So, since I've only got 2 beats, I'm going to go to just the root, and then 5, and then root on the next chord, and then 5, and then root. So that's formula number 1. If you've only got 2 beats for a chord, you just do root 5. Okay? So the 2, 5 to 4, I could go root 5, root 5, root. Or I'm going to do root, a chromatic above or below, root, and then another chromatic above or below, root. So, root, chromatic above, root, chromatic above, root. Or I could do root, chromatic below, root, chromatic below, root. Or I can mix and match. Root, chromatic below, root, chromatic above, root. So, let's look at a couple of options for the first 4 measures now. So first 4 measures, I could go 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, so on the first one I did the 1, 2, 3, 5. On the bar 2, I went down the scale and then chromatic approach. And then I did the same thing on the 1 again. I went down the scale, chromatic approach to the 5, and then I did 5, chromatic approach to the 1 dominant from below, chromatic approach to the 4 from above. Okay, let me do a different version. Now I'm going to do the triad and then chromatic approach on the first one. So. Okay, so that one I did on the first one, I did 1, 3, 5, chromatic down to the 4, and then I went down Mixolydian with a chromatic approach back to the 1. Then same thing, down the scale, Mixolydian with the flat 7, because it's dominant. Down the scale, chromatic approach to the 5 minor, and then I went half step above the 1 dominant, and then I went half step below the 4. And actually I did something a little bit hip, I did a little hiccup. So I actually did a full chromatic surround below, above, target note for that. Okay? Let's do one where we go down from the beginning. So. Okay. I'll address the second 4 bars in a new video.